rolling hills and mountains with fog hovering near the top. Text, protecting and preserving the nature of Hawaii by the National Park Service Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network. A mountain top through white wispy clouds against a bright blue sky. A rainbow arching over a cliff. Text, Haleakala Crater.
Haleakala National Park is actually really unique compared to even other islands in Hawaii. You have this cone-shaped volcano that is 10,000 feet tall that's very exposed to different weather patterns. So you have a really wet side, then you have really dry sides.
A waterfall with lush greenery. A rocky hillside.
There are very unique species here that can be found nowhere else on the planet.
Text, Nene native Hawaiian goose.
Native plants and animals first arrived to the Hawaiian Islands through the wind, on the water, or on the wings of animals. And they were able to evolve here without the threats that we see today.
A bright red bird with black wings and hooked nose. Text, native, Awi. A large black and gray bird. Text, invasive, common myna.
Here in Hawaii, invasives is probably the driving force in maintaining the integrity of the natural environment. There's enormous challenges.
Scientists with large backpacks walking across a rocky hillside surrounded by fog. Text, Woody Mallinson, Natural Resources Program Manager, Haleakala National Park.
Haleakala is home to many endangered species, and sometimes these species are confined to one small gulch right here in our shrubland and nowhere else in the world.
We estimate that there's around 90 new invasive species introduced to the Hawaiian Islands every year.
Scientists noting small brush.
And these species have impacted the island's natural resources in different ways. You know, for these unique ecosystems, they are rather vulnerable.
Branch with small yellow petals. Green stem with small, spiky pink and white flowers. Text, Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network Vegetation Monitoring.
Inventory and monitoring, we're going out into these areas and looking at what resources, what plants, what animals exist in these parks.
Scientists measuring and taking notes. Text, Lindsay Moore, Biological Science Technician, Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network.
Over time we go back with monitoring and we're looking at changes over time.
Stretching a long measuring tape over several yards of rocky ground. Small stake in ground with orange ribbon. Taking pictures of the area.
The plant monitoring that we do is called the Focal Terrestrial Plant Community Plot.
Text, Elizabeth Thurbansky, Biological Science Technician, Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network.
So with these plots, especially with the fixed plots, we're going in and getting the baseline data the first year, and then it's read every 5 years after that. And so within 5 years in the same plot, you can see if density of a certain species has changed, if there's been an introduction of a new species to that plot, if a species is gone missing, if there's any type of substrate damage, we could see that. So we do photo monitoring at our plots where we take photos at photo points, and then 5 years later we go back and take those exact same photo points, and it's very helpful for us to compare these images.
Two photos of the same tree trunk, one surrounded by abundant greenery, the other with less greenery.
This is the telegraph plant.
A tall green plant with several small yellow flowers. Text, invasive, telegraph plant.
It's not native to Hawaii, and it's actually quite invasive in the subalpine shrubland.
Pulling plant out by the root.
Often we do in our plots identify new invasive species, and it's very important to park managers to find this out, and we report it almost immediately.
A slow-moving rocky stream with large rocks and small trees on each side. Text, Haleakala National Park Alalele Stream.
Alalele Stream at Haleakala National Park, the Kipahulu district.
Text, Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network Stream Animal Monitoring.
This stream hosts all of the native species that exist in Hawaiian streams are in this one stream in the park.
Scientist in bodysuit snorkeling and writing on a clipboard underwater. Text, Ann Farahi, Biological Science Technician, Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network.
We do snorkel surveys for everything that is living in the stream, the fish, the shrimp, the snails, native versus non-native, because we want to be able to detect if a non-native comes in. Right now we're really lucky, we don't have any non-native fish. But if we were to detect that, we could tell the park immediately, and hopefully they could do something about it before it gets out of hand.
Underwater, rocks and small fish. Text, water quality monitoring.
We're also doing water quality monitoring, which means we're taking water samples and testing them for nutrients such as nitrates and phosphates. And then we're also using a water quality monitoring device which does things like temperature, pH, chlorophyll, which is the plant matter, turbidity, which is how clear the water is, and dissolved oxygen. Well, I think, to connect it all, this is a really important concept. In Hawaii is the Mauka to Makai concept, the mountain to the ocean.
Towering waterfall.
And the streams are the connection to it all. The streams come from the top of the mountains all the way down to the ocean. So they're like the veins of our island, if you will.
Kumu Lipo. It's the inner relationship of the species of animals, plants that reside in the mountains, and also the relationship of those species to the ocean species of plants, animals that is on the shoreline and into the ocean itself.
Text, Ligario Harris, Wildlife Biological Science Technician, Haleakala National Park.
There is that connection. We see changes every day in our environments, in this park itself. Inspecting and looking at things, monitoring it, how things are doing, as well as their well-being, is important.
One of our roles here at the National Park Service is to maintain the resources and be stewards of the environment, to maintain the integrity of that for current and future generations of Americans.
We want to know when there's a new invasive species that is introduced to our park. And inventory and monitoring can provide that to us.
Helicopter view of waterfall and tree-covered hills.
I've been out there in the field a lot of times in areas that not a lot of people get to go to.
Text, Steve Robertson, Chief of Integrated Resources, Haleakala National Park.
The data collected by the I&M field efforts is very important to us as managers of the natural habitats and resources here. It helps provide us with real, reliable data so that we can focus our efforts, our management work, on those resources that are most in need of attention.
National Park Service logo. Text, Pacific Island Inventory and Monitoring Network supports Alakahakai National Historic Trail, American Memorial Park, Haleakala National Park, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, Kalapapa National Historical Park, Kalokohanakohau National Historical Park, National Park of American Samoa, Pu'uhanu'ohananau National Historical Park, Pu'ukaholahaiao National Historical Site, War in the Pacific National Historical Park.